monthly Zoom conference. I'm Sandy Close, Director of Ethnic Media Services. Today, we focus on taxes, a timely topic since April 15th is normally the deadline for filing tax returns, but not this year. The deadline has been extended, and many in our audiences may not be aware. There are other tax issues as well, such as new provisions relating to taxes in the American Rescue Plan that are important to inform our audiences about. To explore this topic, we have gone to the ultimate source, the IRS. We are honored to welcome two speakers, Ken Corbin, Commissioner with the IRS's Wage and Investment Division, and Sue Simon, Director of Customer Assistance, Relationships, and Education with the Wage and Investment Division. Thank you both very much for being here today on this really important weekend, which I realize for many of us is a time of religious celebration. So your time with us today is especially valued. We will send extended bios about our speakers and their contact information, along with a video of the conference to all participants this afternoon. We ask reporters to enter questions in the chat box. After each speaker, our moderator will select questions, and we will have a final round of Q&As, time permitting. Our thanks to our interpreters for providing simultaneous interpreting in Spanish and Korean, and to our conference coordinators, Pilar Marrero, Sunita Sarabji, Tanu Henry, and Anthony Advincula. I'm turning the conference over to today's moderator, Sunita Sarabji, and I'm getting out my notebook to take notes. Sunita, take it away.
Thank you so much. And let's get right to it. Mr. Corbin, welcome. We're so honored to have you at this briefing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I hope today everyone kind of looks at this as a fireside chat, even though it is spring and we all want to leave winter behind. But we want this to be conversational. We want it to be informative. And just sit down and have this discussion with you all today. So why don't I just dive in and talk a little bit about some of the topics that I think you all will be very interested in. Let's start out with filing season. So filing season is going well. We started accepting tax year 2020 individual tax returns on February 12th. We've already received 85 million individual returns, 85 million. And of the 85 million returns that we have received, we have processed 76 million of them and issued over 56 million refunds, totaling almost $164 billion. By the time we're done, we expect to process more than 160 million individual tax returns. We know taxpayers rely on us for information and help they may need to meet their tax obligations. Our focus as the pandemic continues is to help taxpayers and help tax industry in a way that ensures the safety of our employees and the taxpayers and communities we serve. That's one reason why we extended the due date for individuals to May 17th, 2021. Individuals have until May 17th to file and pay their 2020 taxes. No one will be penalized or charged interest if they file and pay by that date. Note that I said individuals. This does not apply to filers like corporations. And even individuals who make estimated tax payments must still make their first quarter of their 2021 payment by April the 15th. That hasn't changed. The extended due date does apply to making 2020, tax year 2020, contributions to an IRA, a Roth IRA, a health savings account, an Archer medical savings account, and Coverdale education savings accounts. Of course, those who need more time can always request an automatic extension of time to file until October 15th. The due date to request an extension is also May 17th, 2021. But this would be an extension of time to file, not an extension of time to pay. The individual tax payment would still be due by May 17th. So what else can we say about the filing season that we want you to know? We encourage that when taxpayers are ready to file, they should file. So for those who haven't filed yet, I want to start with letting everyone know there are a couple of important steps that they can take, which will greatly improve their experience this year, and if they're due a refund, help them get it faster. So first step, gather your documents. File a complete and accurate return. This is so important, particularly for those who have W-2s or 1099s or other information documents. Make sure that you gather all of your documents and file an accurate return. 2020 was an unusual year. A lot of people lost their jobs or had to start new ones. Be sure that you've thought about 2020 and that you've received your W-2s or your 1099s for the entire year so that you can file a complete return. Next, choose to e-file with direct deposit. We know that even with the vaccine rolling out, many folks may not be comfortable going into a brick and mortar office or going into to look at different things and dealing with their tax preparers. We encourage you to e-file and choose direct deposit. It is the fastest way for your return to be processed, and if you're due a refund, for you to receive it. Switching gears, I want to talk about one of the most popular topics we have here at the IRS since last year. That is the economic impact payments and the rebate recovery credit. Let me give you an update on the recent legislation and those stimulus payments. As the pandemic continues, we remain focused on supporting the federal government's efforts to help those experiencing financial changes and challenges. I'm proud of the work we did to issue more than 160 million of the first round of economic impact payments in 2020 and another 147 million in the second round, many as early as 2 days after the legislation was signed. Two really important reminders about EIP 1 and EIP 2. First, most people received the full amount of both payments and do not have to enter anything about them on their 2020 tax return this year. Second, anyone who may be eligible for an EIP but has not yet received one or didn't get the full amount may claim it when they file their tax year 2020 return. Those eligible for the rebate recovery credit will need the amount of any EIP received to calculate it using the worksheet or the tax preparation software. New this year, you can log on to your federal tax account. You can log in to your federal tax account information on irs.gov to view the amounts of your economic impact payments you've received. We call this IRS online account. You can also view any amounts owed, payment history, installment agreement information, tax records, and key tax return information for the most recent tax return as originally filed. Visit irs.gov/secure access to review the required identity authentication process. Again, the fastest and most accurate way is to file electronically, where the tax software will help you figure out your recovery rebate credit. Keep in mind that the IRS will not calculate the recovery rebate credit for people, but if you make a mistake on line 30, that's where you enter it on your return, the IRS will calculate the correct amount. Make corrections to your tax return and continue processing your return. If a correction is needed, there may be a slight delay in processing your return, and the IRS will send you a notice explaining any changes that we've made. Anyone who doesn't normally file, and again, we had a lot of individuals who are eligible for the recovery rebate credit and may not file a return with the IRS normally, can go to irs.gov/RRC. And there are FAQs and topics there that will help guide them through how to claim the recovery rebate credit and how to submit a simplified tax return just to claim the recovery rebate credit. Now, let me jump ahead because we've got a lot we want to talk about. Let me talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan. I'm sure you all are aware that we recently had some significant legislation enacted after the filing season started. The American Rescue Plan authorized a third round of economic impact payments, and it included a number of other tax law changes that I'll get to in a minute. On the third round of stimulus payments, we got the first batch processed the day after the legislation was enacted. So far, we've issued more than 130 million payments worth approximately $335 billion. The majority have been issued as direct deposits, but we are also mailing paper checks or EIP cards, which is a prepaid debit card if we do not have bank account information. We encourage all of your readers to be on the lookout. If you haven't gotten a direct deposit, check your mail and be sure not to throw away the prepaid EIP card. We've done a few changes with this round to make the card and the envelope stand out a little bit more. And there's information on irs.gov if you want to know what the card looks like and what the envelope may look like as well. So far, these payments have gone out to those who are eligible, who have filed a 2019 or 2020 tax return, people who don't typically file a return, but who successfully used our non-filer tool on irs.gov last year, and the first of ongoing supplemental payments for those who received an earlier payment that was based on your 2019 return, but your 2020 return is processed. If you are due additional money for EIP 3, we will automatically send you that additional money, so you don't have to do anything else. A question you may ask is, What do I do if I got one of these wonderful debit cards that I'm holding here for you to take a look at? And let's say I accidentally threw it away. If you go to irs.gov and go to our RRC FAQ landing page, there's a toll-free number there where you can call and have a card reissued and resent back to you. Yesterday, we announced we are adding another group of recipients. So Social Security and other beneficiaries who haven't filed a tax return, those individuals should start seeing their payments by Wednesday, April 7th. And the Get My Payment application on irs.gov will update with their information this weekend. Veterans Affairs benefit recipients are not included in this last group, but we do estimate that we will be able to get their money dispersed to them shortly, by mid-April. Payments will continue on a weekly basis going forward as the IRS continues to process both tax year 2020 and tax year 2019 returns. Let me jump ahead real quick to unemployment compensation, and then I'll turn it over to Sue. There is more than stimulus payments in the new law. A change was also made related to unemployment compensation for many of our taxpayers and citizens who have been impacted by the pandemic for 2020. Many people lost their job during 2020, and as a result, may, for the first time, need to include unemployment compensation amounts on their tax return. For tax year 2020, up to $20,400 of unemployment compensation if married, filing joint, and $10,200 for all other eligible taxpayers is now not taxable. We've worked with our partners in the tax preparation and software industries, and I'm happy to say they have updated their programming to address this change so that moving forward, when people file electronically, this change is accounted for. We've also updated our paper instructions, but again, we strongly suggest everyone file electronically. Also, since the filing season started before the law was passed, some taxpayers have already filed their tax return and paid taxes on that unemployment compensation. Earlier this week, we announced that we will automatically adjust those returns, and if that results in an overpayment or a refund, we will send refunds to the affected taxpayers. They don't need to take any action or file an amended return unless they need to amend to make other changes to their return. Those refunds are expected to start in May and continue all the way through early summer. Let me pause there and see if you have any questions before I turn it over to Sue. Any questions or anything we want to jump back to?
Mr. Corbin, first of all, could you just explain the process of how to include that unemployment insurance payment on your taxes? Where do you do it in TurboTax? Where do you do it on a paper form? It's not clear, I'll tell you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So many of our software providers do an interview-based software. So for example, the company that you mentioned, in the income section of the tax preparation software, it will ask you, did you receive unemployment compensation this year? And it'll have in a little bracket a form 1099-G. So it's prompting you, did you receive compensation? And do you have a 1099-G? You should say yes to that question. The next question it'll ask you is to enter the full dollar amount on the 1099-G for the unemployment compensation that you have received. So enter the full amount from your 1099 when the software prompts you to do that. Then you'll just click next. The software will automatically adjust your entry on line 7 of Schedule 1 of your 1040, subtracting out the maximum amount of non-taxable unemployment compensation. So you don't have to do anything or figure anything. In software, enter the full amount that you have on your 1099-G, and it will automatically compute either the $20,400 if you are married filing joint, or it will automatically subtract $10,200 if you are any other filing status. So the software will do it behind the scenes for you. You don't have to do anything else to figure it out.
We have several questions in the chat. I would like to start out with Henrietta Burrows. Henrietta.
Thanks so much, Sunita. You had mentioned that the filing deadline, tax filing deadline, is now May 17th. So wouldn't it be consistent to also have the deadline for making contributions to an IRA move to May 17th too? Right now, you said it's April 15th.
That's an excellent question. But contributions to an IRA, a Roth IRA, a health savings account, an Archer medical savings account, or a Coverdale education savings account, that is extended until May 17th. The extended due date does apply to an IRA contribution for 2020.
Oh, thank you. I thought you said it was still April 15th.
So going back, let me clarify what is still April 15th. So what the deadline for April 15th still applies to estimated tax payments for the first quarter of tax year 2021. So that is still April 15th. I know it's a little, it's, you know, tax administration is just, but everyone just goes, it's confusing. I definitely get it. But April 15th, if you're making estimated tax payments and that first quarter payment for 2021, that is still due April 15th. But definitely for an IRA, that is extended until May 17th, 2021.
Thank you.
And just to clarify, Mr. Corbin, self-employed people still have to file by April 15th. Is that right?
So self-employed individuals who file a 1040 and use a Schedule C still are filing an individual return. They still can file by May 17th. If you're filing a business return other than a 1040, you do have to file by the traditional filing deadline.
Got it. Our next question comes from Oni Advincula, who has a couple of really interesting questions. Oni, welcome.
Ooh, interesting questions. I'm waiting.
Thank you, Sunita. Thank you, Mr. Corbin. I actually have a couple of questions. I'm just going to ask you both of them. So many people for the first time have filed unemployment, but they have not fully understood that the unemployment is taxable. So this results in many people owing taxes, and there is a 25% penalty of the tax owed. Can you explain what needs to be done to address this or to avoid that 25%? And the second question is related to Henrietta's question. Again, because of the pandemic, younger people who are younger than 60 years old, have withdrawn their retirement accounts earlier than maturity. I've known a couple who have done this, but that is subject to 10% penalty. And that affects tax returns, like what Henrietta was saying earlier. But people can file, they say, experienced financial hardship to avoid the penalty and tax changes. What constitutes financial hardship?
So financial hardship is normally on a case-by-case basis. And there was a provision in the CARES Act, which was passed last year, that allowed individuals who were not of age to be able to withdraw without penalty from their retirement accounts. I believe that the deadline to make that withdrawal was December 15th, but we certainly will circle back and provide more detailed information to this group about what that provision does and how people can avoid or not be subject to that penalty for early withdrawal. So that was something that was contemplated and included in the original CARES Act legislation that was passed earlier in 2020. For those individuals who for the first time are filing and really filing because of unemployment compensation, when they go into software, if that is their only entry, it will compute and make sure that it adjusts for the new exclusion that was provided in the most recent round of legislation that was passed. It's $10,200 for all other filing statuses, and then $20,400 for married filing joint. We do have on IRS.gov, and I'll be sure to get this to you, a really nice publication. It's like a one-pager that specifically addresses unemployment compensation. And it does a really neat job of explaining and kind of helping people understand what is happening with unemployment compensation. I would note too that we are aware that there are many individuals out there whose identity has been compromised, and there have been fraudulent unemployment compensation claims issued in their name. And so what we tell people to do is that you should only file for actual unemployment compensation you have received. If you did not receive that unemployment compensation, you should not report that on your return. We are working with our state partners, along with a number of law enforcement agencies, to assist in finding these individuals who have taken advantage of our vulnerable population. But we just say to taxpayers, file only an accurate return and file what is truly yours.
Terrific. We have two more questions for you, Mr. Corbin.
Sure.
From Claudia Mendoza. Claudia.
Yes, thank you. In this diversity of languages and cultures and access, what are the languages both in document communications and customer service that the IRS supports, and how do you address the immense diversity of customers?
That is an excellent question. And actually joining me here today is Sue Simon, who was introduced earlier, who is our Director of Customer Assistance, Relationship, and Education. And she is also our multilingual initiative champion for the IRS. The other hat that I have the fortune of wearing here at the IRS is I'm also our and your Chief Taxpayer Experience Officer. And so what that means is that I play a unique role in the agency to find and look for experience initiatives to help make the interaction with our agency better for all taxpayers and all citizens. One of the things that we are focused on is our multilingual initiative. And before Sue jumps in and starts talking a little bit about what we've done and answering your question, I will say new for the first time this filing season, we have a new schedule. It's called a Schedule LEP for Limited English Proficiency. And you file that schedule with your 1040 this year.
Before Sue starts, could I just have you answer one more question related to the CTC, the child tax credit? Jorge Macias. Jorge, could you ask your question? So I think Jorge's having some trouble, but Jorge asked, what are the requirements in order to receive the child's tax credit of $3,600 that was part of the American Rescue Plan?
That is an excellent question. So the American Rescue Plan has two components to it. One, it increased the amount of the child tax credit for your tax year 2021 tax return, which will be filed in filing season 2022. So taxpayers will receive a higher benefit for the child tax credit when they file their individual Form 1040 or 1040 SR in 2022. But new for this year is the ability to get an advance on that child tax credit. So eligible taxpayers will start to get an advance payment, very similar to our economic impact payments, beginning this summer of 2021. To be eligible for the advance payment, you must have filed a tax year 2019 or tax year 2020 return. You must have claimed the child tax credit on either your tax year 2019 or your tax year 2020 return. The IRS will automatically consider you eligible for the advance payment of the tax year 2021 child tax credit. Look for more information coming very soon to irs.gov and to our news releases to provide information on how taxpayers who do not want to receive that advance payment can opt out of it. Also, if you have a new child that's born in 2021, that of course was not on your 2020 or your 2019 return, there will be a brand new portal or tool available to you to be able to add additional children or update your income to look at your advance payment. So more to come on that. I hope that was helpful.
There are many more questions for you, but let's move on to Sue, and then we'll come back to you at the end of the call. Next on is Sue Simon. She's the Director of Customer Assistant Relationships and Education at the Wage and Investment Division of the IRS. Welcome, Sue.
Oh, thank you so much, Sunita, and thank you, Ken. I am so glad to be here today, and I am so glad to have that question about languages. Yes, I am the language champion, and I love that part of my job. I have a team of people throughout the IRS that have been working for almost 2 years on making sure that we can provide services to taxpayers in so many different languages so they understand what they need to do. As Ken said, we have a new schedule, LEP. That schedule asks taxpayer if they want to receive notices, anything that we would normally send to them in English. We are going to be prepared to send to them in 20 different languages. So each taxpayer should fill out that form if they want to receive any further communications from us, not their tax return itself, but further communications about anything we need information from or that we want to provide to them. I wasn't planning to, but I'm going to read off these languages because you did have that question. Of course, we have English and Spanish. which are the two primary languages in the United States. We also have Korean, Vietnamese, Russian, Arabic, Haitian Creole, Tagalog, Portuguese, Polish, Farsi, French, Japanese, Gujarati, Punjabi, Khmer, Urdu, Bengali, Italian, and two forms of Chinese, both traditional and simplified. That covers the most commonly used languages in the United States. So we're very, very pleased that we are starting to really make sure that all taxpayers in the United States truly understand what they are supposed to be doing and what we try to get to them. We have started translating our documents as well. Pub number 1, which is our basic Your Rights as a Taxpayer. It tells every taxpayer how they can get appeal rights, the things that they can do if they don't agree with us. That is in those same 20 languages. Basic tax information on irs.gov. I wish I counted how many times Ken said irs.gov. We really pushed irs.gov. It is a great website. It has so much information. Please go explore it. Very intuitive, very easy to get around. We have 20, those same 20 languages, basic tax information for anyone who needs to know how to file, when to file, what a filing requirement is for dependents. All of those basic tax information things that everybody really truly needs to know. And I wish we were still training our kids in high school about. We also have Publication 17. Publication 17 is the commonly used forms information for most individuals with families. It has all of the dependency information, filing status requirements, filing types of income requirements. That is currently in 7 different languages. And again, it's on irs.gov. If you go to irs.gov, you can link on it. That is in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Russian, Korean, and again, the 2 forms of the Chinese, both the traditional and the simplified. So that covers pretty much what we are doing currently. In the future, we plan to do more. We're doing a lot of outreach over the next year. We welcome any information. We welcome your recommendations, especially. I'm always looking for new things, new ways to ensure that we get this information into the communities. So please do not hesitate to let us know what your ideas are, to let us know what did we miss. You know, obviously we can't think of everything. So we're trying very hard on that. And that's pretty much all I have on our communication in multiple languages. However, I do want to go over a few other things that could be valuable to both the people on the call and your readership as well. As Ken said, e-filing is critical for us. E-file is so important for every taxpayer. It is the best way to file. If you use an e-file program, there are so many fewer mistakes. It answers your questions as you're filing the tax return. We want to make sure that everybody can e-file. We want to make sure that we make that available to all our taxpayers. So we have a couple of ways that people can e-file for free. The first one is to go to IRS Free File. If you go to our website again, you will see a link that allows you to go right into IRS Free File, where you can choose from a number of software providers who will provide free electronic filing for federal tax returns if you make less than $72,000 a year. There are other alternatives for people who have higher income, and it may be a smaller fee, but the $72,000 is the current cutoff for absolutely free electronic filing. It is important. It gets processed faster. If you use direct deposit with e-filing, it makes it so much easier for the taxpayers. They don't have to go looking and say, you know, where's my refund? Why hasn't it been processed? It goes through our system so well. It's just, and it helps you. As Ken said, there's a question and answer process. They ask you the questions on the platform that prompt you to remember what you need to have on your tax return. If you cannot get Free File, to work for you if you are not computer literate. If you have difficulty with computers, we have another way. We have IRS to go applications. Those are in English and Spanish. So if you communicate primarily with your smartphone, IRS to go is also the way to get information. And excuse me, it has a lookup tool for IRS Free File as well. For taxpayers who really need a little more help, they can't make it quite through those systems themselves, we have a wonderful program called VITA, Volunteers in Tax Assistance. And we also have a partner program called Tax Counseling for the Elderly. These are volunteers throughout the country. We have a group called our SPEC group that with about 400 people around the country who spend all year working with community partners to engage them in doing free tax return preparation in their communities. They don't put an IRS sign up. They are trusted partners in the community. Some of them are banks, colleges. AARP is a national partner. United Way is another partner. These people are there to provide free tax return preparation, to help taxpayers understand their taxes, also to help them with some educational assistance with building, setting up their own bank accounts, learning how to manage their money. We're very, very proud of this program. I'm especially proud. This is one of the programs that I oversee, and I'm really proud of the work our people do. I'm very proud of the almost 90,000 volunteers around the country that we have year in and year out. This year it's a little difficult because of COVID. We do want our volunteers to be as safe as everyone else. So many of them are doing electronic filing on a remote virtual basis, but some of them are open in person. Again, if you go to irs.gov, you will be able to look for those sites. We currently have about 11,000 sites set up by our partners. You need to just check and see when they're open. Some of them do require appointments if they are doing face-to-face services. If they're not doing face-to-face services, they help you over the phone as well. So great opportunities for people to actually get free tax returns done. The last opportunity is there are paid preparers out there. There are some wonderful professional people. These are tax accountants, these are tax lawyers. There are some low-income taxpayer clinics, but there are also paid preparers. And this is where you go in and you do actually pay someone to prepare your tax return. We do not recommend any individual or any company. That would not be ethically good for the IRS to do. But we do have some recommendations for how you select a paid preparer, what you look for to make sure you're going to someone who is going to prepare your return right. I cringe every time I watch a commercial that says, we will get you a bigger refund. There is no such thing as a bigger refund. If your return is prepared correctly, you get the refund that is correct for your circumstances. No individual paid preparer tax return program is going to find more money for you if you're putting everything in correctly. So please, I do urge you to go in. There is on irs.gov, there is a resource that is called Choosing a Tax Professional. And it gives you hints on what to look for. It has a directory of federal tax return preparers who have credentials in their qualifications for filing tax returns. So please, I encourage everyone to be aware of that and stay away from those that say, I'm going to get you $1,000 more than anyone else, because it's not the right thing to do. Okay, along with those preparers that I don't want anyone going to, we have IRS scams out there, lots of them. I'm sure everyone's seen on the news where people get phone calls. My husband gets phone calls on his phone all the time, and I tell him immediately, hang up, don't listen. I wanted to give you kind of an idea of what we've seen, what we should be doing, okay? Some things that you should recognize definitely as a scam when they say they're IRS. We are always going to mail a bill to the taxpayer if they owe us money. We're never going to call them first. We're never going to send them an email first. We're going to send them a bill, and then 30 days later, we're usually going to send them another bill. We're going to say, hey, you forgot to pay us. This is how much you owe. We're not going to call and say, you made a mistake on your tax return and now you owe $1,200, and you need to verify your personal information and we can fix that for you. We don't do that. Absolutely do not do that. We do not call people and tell them that we will set up a payment plan for them. If you call us, we'll work with you on a payment plan, but we don't call people and give them alternative ways to pay their bills, okay? There are some great ways that we can help people if they owe us money. There are some great ways that we can make it easier than writing a check or walking into an office, but we're not gonna call you. We're not gonna call anyone unless we have sent a series of bills first. And then you're gonna know it definitely is us. Be careful on telephones. The scammers, the criminals, when they're calling you, they can change what appears to be the phone number they're calling from, okay? When I answer the phone and I have an area code that looks the same as mine, I'm not gonna look as carefully at it. I'm gonna answer that phone because I'm assuming it might be my girlfriend down the street and she's using a different phone. So be careful. Do not automatically assume it's a legitimate call just because it is close to your own, it has the right area code, it has the right first three numbers. We just issued a news release, and I believe we provided it in the materials for today, about the most recent scam that we've seen. And this is where we've received some complaints about where people with email addresses ending in edu. So this is college students primarily. They're phishing emails, they're targeting university and college students in both public and private institutions, and they display the IRS logo. Very easy to take a picture of our logo and attach it on something. And they use various subject lines such as tax refund payment or recalculation of your tax refund payment. And then it asks them to click the link. Anytime you get an email and you don't know who it's coming from, don't click that link. Absolutely do not. That would not be from us. We are not sending those out. Okay, and you know, we get those phone calls. I know everyone's heard about these, where there's someone on the phone and they say, I am calling about some money that you owe the IRS, and if you don't pay us immediately today, I'm sending the police out to arrest you. And you can maybe hear some sirens in the background. No, we don't do that. Never do that. You should hang up immediately. That's one of the things, again, I tell my husband, hang up the phone immediately. Do not say yes, do not say no. Anything that you say on the phone can be recorded and used in another context. Be very, very careful with those phone calls. We have a Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration. Anytime anyone impersonates IRS personnel, says they are from the IRS, please report it to our TIGTA people, also to the Federal Trade Commission. And then finally, we do have a number, and these are continuing, but we're very happy that we've been able to reduce these in the past few years, where someone will get your Social Security number. They will get information about you, about your family, about where you've worked. And they will file a tax return in your name, maybe change the address, maybe change the bank account information. And you don't know about it until you go to file your tax return. And if you electronically file, it comes back and it rejects it and it says you've already filed, okay? That is the most common scam. We have been very successful in reducing those with institution of identity pins, with some of our fraud activities where we're combating fraud with states and local governments and through our filtering. If that happens to you or a friend, you do need to file a form That's Form 14039. It's an identity theft affidavit. When that happens, we will issue you an individual PIN, an IP PIN. And when you file your tax return and you use that IP PIN, it verifies to us that you are the person filing that return. However, if it's already happened and you didn't have an IP PIN, it's going to take us a while to fix it for you, but we will get it fixed. Let me go on. Refund timing. Okay. Again, if you go to irs.gov, you file through Free File, 21 days if we're going to deposit it into your bank. Okay. That's the timeline we're looking at. If you're like my husband, and he filed a paper return this year because there were some problems. I got my refund already because I filed the same time. He didn't. Okay. It takes about 6 weeks in a normal time period for us to process a paper return. You may have noticed there's a little bit going on out there with COVID. It has delayed our processing. We're still working on some of our backlog work. Our folks are working really, really hard. They are digging out. It's gotten so much better, but it is going to take longer. E-file is better. It's faster. You'll get your returns. You'll get your refunds if there's nothing wrong with your tax return. Okay. If there is something wrong with your tax return, we're going to have to fix it. It could be that, again, as I said, someone else filed under your number. It could be that something on your tax return hit one of our filters and we want to just check and make sure it is you filing and that it is the correct information. That's going to take a little bit longer. But for the most part, those refunds Ken talked about, they've all gone out within 21 days for the most part. Okay. And if you don't get it within 21 days, please go to, guess where? IRS.gov. Where's my refund? It's very easy to use. As I said, my husband Dave has been looking for his. Just hit the six week mark. It's a simple tool. You go to irs.gov, you put in your social security number, you put in the amount of refund you expected, and there's one other key thing that you put in there. It'll come back and it'll tell you, well, for Dave, it's not saying anything right now because we haven't processed his return. But when your return is in process, it'll tell you what the status is of that return. Okay.
Susan, sorry to interrupt, but could you tell us how to identify the correct IRS site from, if you go to Google, obviously there's so many sites out there that tell you this is where you get your refund from. Could you tell us how to correctly identify the IRS site?
Okay, so the irs.gov site, if it says irs.gov, nothing else, just irs.gov. That's all it is. If it says irs.com, if it says irs.edu, if it says irs.gov and then 5 million characters after it, that's not where you want to be. It's just very, very simple, irs.gov. And that's what's going to take you. You will see a screen, and they do change it periodically. Very intuitive. It's got like about 8 different boxes that will steer you to. One says forms and pubs. One says, where's my refund? Very, very intuitive, easy to read, very simple. Okay, so let me move on to, okay, you're not going to get a refund, you owe us some money. It happens. You know, it definitely happens. As you said, many people who got unemployment have never done it before, don't know that's taxable income, so they didn't have any withholding. People who start their Social Security and they're still working. You know, some of us older folks like to keep working, even though we're eligible, right? If you do owe money, the best way to do this is don't be afraid. File your taxes. Get your taxes in on time. We do charge penalties, a failure to file penalty. So if you file your taxes on time, we're not going to charge that. We do charge interest. There's a failure to pay penalty and there is interest. However, the best thing you can do, file that tax return on time, pay as much as you can. Once we process that return, we're going to send you a bill and we're going to say, hey, you still owe this money. Why don't you talk to us and we can work with you, or we'll give you payment alternatives. You can do direct pay through a computer. You can put a check in the mail. That's kind of dangerous these days. I would really rather people did direct pay. You can, if you have the money in the bank when you're filing your tax return, elect to have it taken directly out of your checking or savings account. Lots of ways to pay. But if you can't do it and you need some assistance, please call us or even go online. Again, irs.gov. You can set up an installment agreement online. We will work with you, whether it's online, on the phone, or even in person in our taxpayer assistance offices to help you set up a payment agreement that will allow you to get out from under that IRS debt. You don't want to let it increase. You don't want to let it grow with the interest and penalties because they accrue until it's all paid. You don't want to stop filing because then you're not going to get all the benefits that are available, like those EIP payments. So please, anyone, no matter what your status is, file the tax return on time, then work with us and we will help you get it paid for. And
Hey,
then
Sue, I saw a question. Someone asked, what will I need for Where's My Refund? So for Where's My Refund, you'll need your social security number or your ITIN. You will need your filing status and the exact refund amount. And if you don't have a computer, we also encourage you to download the IRS To Go app off of the Google Play Store or off of the Apple Store. And that way you can be sure you're going to the right location and safest way to check the status of your refund. I thought I'd give Sue a little commercial break so she could have a sip of water.
Thank you, Ken. Yeah, and that IRS To Go app, that's in both English and Spanish. So watch for the download. It'll prompt you to either download it in English or in Spanish. Okay, and finally, you've heard the theme, it's irs.gov. We have online resources that are available to make filing taxes easier. Just about anything you can think of that has to do with taxes is going to be found somewhere on irs.gov. We have a whole team of people who are dedicated to making sure that it is intuitive, that it is easy to use, that it is accessible to you. I strongly urge you, go there first. Always go there first. Our phone lines are really backed up. Our folks are working very hard. Ken, maybe you could help me out with these numbers here. We've had over 1 billion phone calls since February 12th. At one point in time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, we were getting 1,500 phone calls per second. That is per second. So,
Yeah.
those folks are working hard. They're really working hard, but you're going to wait. Guaranteed. Did I get the right numbers, Ken?
That is the right number.
Okay. So, and that is pretty much all I have to share. I could talk all day. Ken can talk all day. We love speaking to y'all. We love answering questions. I will encourage you, if you don't know anything about VITA, we also are volunteers and tax assistants. There is also a link on irs.gov. It is a great way to learn to do your own taxes by taking some of our courses and volunteering to do tax returns for your family and friends and in your community through one of our partners. So I got to get that plug in. So that's it, Sunita.
Okay, we have a number of questions and I'm wondering if we can extend the call out to maybe about 5 to 7 minutes. Would that work for you, Susan and Ken?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
so Julia Dudley had a very interesting question about how people actually get those social security numbers. Julia, could you ask your question?
There we go. And I think you kind of answered it. Oh, I think it was kind of answered in the sense that I guess a person should go get a PIN. That actually happened to me. And that's why I was asking that, just to confirm. I'm not the only one that's happened to. A number of other people I know in my African-American community that's happened to. And that was a very odd thing. And then it forced us to all do a paper tax preparation of our work. And so I just wanted to make sure that that is what you're saying to do, that an individual like myself and others who are experiencing this should go and get a PIN, if I'm not
Yes,
mistaken?
Julia,
Yes.
absolutely. People should get a PIN. You don't even have to be a victim of identity theft anymore. We have expanded that program. It's now available in all states. It's a good safeguard. People's social security numbers, and not just people, but your dependents, your children. There are breaches in various systems. We've seen breaches in payroll systems. We've seen breaches at accountants' offices and lawyers' offices. The thieves, the criminals will take a whole batch of social security numbers and sell them on the black web. So, and that's the most common way. But you know, it also goes back to who else in your family, who in your neighborhood has possession, especially of your kids' ID numbers. Be very, very careful. Don't let kids take their social security numbers to school. I've seen a lot of them put them in their wallets, and they want to show people that they're a big person. Not a good idea. They should be safeguarded. But yes, IP PIN is now open. Everybody who has any inkling at all that they're a victim of identity theft should definitely get the IP PIN. Be very careful. Don't lose it. If you lose it, it's a little more difficult getting it replaced.
So there are a number of questions about undocumented people, and Jungwon Lee, if you could ask your question, and then Sandy, if you could follow up and ask your question if it differs. Jungwon?
Yeah. Hi, yes, I have a question. So is there any tax initiative or package for undocumented population? Yes, I know this is the area of the USCIS and not IRS, but if that can undocumented to file tax return with their ITIN, is that recommended? And if so, is the mixed status family, for instance, undocumented parents and the citizen child, are eligible for stimulus package or child tax credit?
Okay, so I'll address parts of that for you, Jungwon. We absolutely want anyone who has a tax filing obligation, whether they are documented or undocumented, to file their tax returns. If they are not eligible for a social security number, they should file a W-7 form requesting an ITIN, an individual taxpayer identification number. That gets filed normally with a tax return. It can be filed without the tax return in some instances. We have people who visit the country, they may have gambling winnings, they may set up a bank account, they may not have a filing requirement, but they do need a number that can help them set up those accounts, can help them get the benefits they want. Absolutely, they should get that ITIN. One of the worst things to do is just to make up a number. If you make up a number, our systems are going to catch it. Or if you use someone else's number, our systems are going to catch it. And it's just going to create problems for more than one person. And I will tell you, and I know this is a fear, everyone's afraid of the IRS. We're not the bad guys, truly. Most of us are trying to help people. We are very careful that every piece of information that comes to us is taken care of so that it is not disclosed to other people or other agencies. That is not our purpose. We are here to provide assistance to taxpayers in meeting their filing obligations and being eligible for every benefit that we provide to them. If you have an ITIN rather than a social security number, you may not be eligible for all of the credits or all of the benefits. But it's important that you maintain that and one of the reasons is when a person goes to get their citizenship, one of the questions they're going to ask is, have you been working? And if you have been working, have you been filing your taxes? And they will need to show proof of that. Does that answer your question, I hope?
I think so. And I have two questions for you before we finish. How aggressively is the IRS going to go after people who did not pay their taxes in 2019? there were a lot of issues, obviously, for people who with paying their taxes in 2020. So, is this going to be an area of some concern for people?
You know, it's important that everybody pay the correct amount of tax. It's important to all of us as citizens. And I'm going to turn the rest of that response over to Ken Corbin.
Thank you, Sue. I agree with what Sue said. I mean, our system is based on fairness and equity. Part of fairness and equity means those who owe money should pay the money that they owe. So, our job as tax administrators is not only to give the benefits of the tax code to those who are entitled to a refund, but also to make sure that those who file their taxes accurately, who pay their fair share of taxes, they have to have confidence that we are also doing our job to make sure that those who owe are doing the right thing. Now, when we say go aggressively after them, the thing I will tell you is we'll try and educate them about all the opportunities that we have out there for installment agreements or different ways that they can meet their paying obligation. Because we certainly understand that, people are running into hard times for 2019 and 2020. So we really look at it more as our opportunity to educate and work with those individuals to make sure that they pay the right taxes so that they are a part of contributing to our society.
And I think just a final question for me, are most states also extending their deadlines in keeping with the IRS, or are states doing something different entirely?
We have a great relationship with the states. Not all states have landed on the decision about whether they're going to extend their individual filing deadline. I would just encourage anyone who is a state filer to continue to monitor that state taxing agency. But we know that oftentimes what we do with the IRS, the states tend to follow, but it really is a state by state decision. But there have been a few states that have already announced extensions through May 17th.
Susan, did you want to add anything to that?
No, Ken is my resident expert on what the states do. He gets to talk to him a lot more than I do.
All the time.
Fantastic. Yeah. Sandy, I turn it back to you.
Just a very quick, big thanks. You think of death and taxes, so it does feel like a very grim topic, but you guys have made a delightful and informative and user-friendly briefing for us. Thank you so much.
Well, please have us back. I mean, the filing extension extended time, which means, hey, we probably have more questions we didn't get to, but we are certainly here and appreciate the opportunity. If we could be of service, let us know.
Thank you.